We're in Independence. It's August 8th. Some of these missionaries that have made this journey, they're getting restless. They want to get home. They want to return to their family. And so Section 60 is given to this group. Now, the caveat is there's an entire other group of elders who have not yet arrived in Independence. Hiram's group that went north, further north into Detroit and then down, they still haven't come. They're not here. And partly because they've actually been preaching the gospel and taking a longer route to get there, and partly because John Murdoch got sick and maybe some other sickness along the way delayed them, but they haven't yet gotten here. So the group we're talking about here is a group that came fairly quickly to Independence. And remember, they were told to preach the gospel along the way, spread out. Look at section 60, verse 1. Behold, thus saith the Lord unto the elders of his church, who are to return speedily to the land from whence they came. Behold, it pleaseth me that you have come up hither. So there are some that he wants to return speedily. We'll talk about that a little later. Sidney Gilbert and W.W. Phelps for some specific reasons, as well as Joseph Smith, Sidney Rigdon, and Oliver Cowdery. Look at verse 2. But with some I am not well pleased, for they will not open their mouths, but they hide the talent which I have given unto them because of the fear of man. Woe unto such, for mine anger is kindled against them. Brothers and sisters, for me, the essence of verse 2 is tied into some things that Taylor has emphasized multiple times in the past. This covenant obligation that's given to us from God. It's rooted in here, in verse 2, this idea that God gives us all of these amazing promises and blessings that flow from establishing that covenant with Him. If we're His people and He's our God, He gives us land, He gives us priesthood power, He gives us posterity, He gives us possessions, and with all of those things that He's given us and all of that knowledge comes a responsibility. He doesn't want us to have all of that and then selfishly hide it and keep it to ourselves.
I love this hymn, Have I Done Any Good? And before I quote some of it, let's consider this, that what God is asking us to do, in this case, He wanted people to open their mouth to preach the gospel. I see a larger principle that any ability you have to bless someone else's life and to do good for them, you shouldn't hide that. You shouldn't keep it back. And so this hymn, have I done any good in the world today? Have I helped anyone in need? Have I cheered up the sad and made someone feel glad? If not, I have failed indeed. Has anyone's burden been lighter today because I was willing to share? Have the sick and the weary been helped on their way when they needed my help? Was I there? Then wake up and do something more than dream of your mansion above. Doing good is a pleasure, a joy beyond measure, a blessing of duty and love. So when I read verse 2 of section 60, that's what comes to mind, is that these beautiful words of this hymn to remind me that it is not my job to save everybody in the world. That's God's job. But it is an invitation for me on a daily basis to see how I can share God's love with others. And any talent or time or ability that I have to lift others and to help their lives be better, I shouldn't hold back, and I should offer freely what God has given to me. And that is God's expectation. He gives to us freely that we might do the same to others.
So now, and keep in mind, this group that hurried, many of them didn't pause to open their mouth or to share. And so that's specifically in this target audience here. But we can apply it to us today, that we share that light and goodness that God has given to us. Verse 3. And it shall come to pass, if they are not more faithful unto me, it shall be taken away, even that which they have. So there's a consequence that he attaches to this idea of if we selfishly hold on and don't share it with others, he says it's going to be taken away. And then he makes it very clear his authority to do that. Verse 4, "For I, the Lord, rule in the heavens above and among the armies of the earth. And in the day when I shall make up my jewels, all men shall know what it is that bespeaketh the power of God."